we were laughing a few moments ago about your Hulk smash line. You really were counting on the operating leverage at parks, and you say that the quarter ratified your view.
It was a spectacular quarter. You know, we've seen over the years that Disney has a ton of leverage in theme parks, but this was a real shock. We were projecting $1.3 billion in OI from theme parks. They came in at almost double that, almost $2.5 billion. And when parks turn, they turn for years. So while our numbers went up, and I'm sure everybody on the street raised estimates, this is the beginning of an earnings revision, an upward earnings revision curve.
All right. You reiterate your buy. You keep 191. Those who are less bullish on the street, at least this morning, seem to be doing so by putting it in the context of the re-rating at Netflix. And I wonder, is that some kind of cloud or suppressant on the valuation for Disney overall?
That's not our view. Our view is that the studios, namely Disney or Discovery, soon to be Warner Brothers Discovery, even Viacom, they have huge advantages, or your parent company, Comcast with NBCU, have huge advantages versus somebody like Netflix or any of the family, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, and that is that they have studios with deep library, content that consumers know, brands that they know. They have production facilities in place, very strong production expertise, but they can use this content across multiple networks and platforms. So they can really leverage what they do for streaming elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. What about the type of that content, Jessica? Bob Chapek gave an interview to our Julia Borston. You couldn't help but see the massive Encanto poster in his backdrop. I wonder, this has been such a huge hit, but does it, and some of the stuff that's slated to be released in the second half of this year, does it move enough outside of Disney's core and help capture an audience that it doesn't have already?
Well, on the conference call, and I'm sure Bob Chapek talks about it as well, they are expanding their content offerings. So it's more general entertainment, whether it's the Beatles, they talked about Blackish, they will expand general entertainment, but within their core four brands, they're pretty much unmatched. Like Star Wars, Lucas, which is Lucas, Marvel, mm-hmm. They've created so many universes, so many new, just environments. And, we could talk about the metaverse, we'll see what it is, but they're certainly uniquely positioned for that. And then Pixar and Disney. I mean, these are great brands with a lot of content and a lot of expertise.
Jessica, I think it was the B of A desk earlier in the week. They were just thinking about where we are in the intellectual property value of franchises. Those values have been inflated as the Amazons and the Apples of the world have gotten into film. And yet you're still working, at least theatrically, with sort of an old school model, mom and pop theater operators. And I just wonder how you think that's going to evolve. If we're in for a wave of theater closures, do we know if people will come back to theaters post-COVID in ways that they were going prior to the pandemic?
Well, for certain films, obviously they will. Spider-Man was a humongous success by any measure, pre-COVID or in this environment. So we'll see what happens in the next year. I would think that the number of screens in the U.S. will probably shrink a bit. But the ability of the studios now, they all have streaming platforms, they have the luxury of either going, in the traditional windows and maybe shortening those windows, but benefiting in later, having the promotions, which will help them in streaming, or they can go direct to consumer via streaming. So there are options for these films, in any case, and Encanto is just a great example, because Disney did create a new brand. And I know West Side Story is coming finally to Disney Plus. So there are a lot more platforms, a lot more distribution windows that they have. But the film business won't go away. And actually, that's a really good point, because film did not recover. Theme parks still have a long way to go in terms of capacity. International visitors are 20% roughly of the total, and they're not back. Cruise ships really aren't back. So just think about all the things that will be coming over the next year or so.